to our distance learning launching of the first 2 weeks professional development for middle school history social studies. We want to acknowledge that there are some folks from middle school ELA coming in. You will notice maybe some things that you've already gone over. Feel free to check out and then come back and refocus on the areas that are new to you. So as you come in, please make sure to sign in. Lod, if you can advance the slide. Using the QR code or the bit.ly link. The agenda, I believe, has been put up by Terica on our chat. So everything that you need, everything that we'll be sharing with you on the slide deck, referencing, you can access in that agenda. So a few things as you all come in. Again, welcome.
It's very similar to the one I just attended.
Please make sure to sign in using the QR code. The agenda with all of the links to the resources we'll be sharing has been linked to the chat. Please have that on or accessible to you during this PD. And when you get those two things, go ahead and add your name, your preferred gender pronoun,
The last one
and the site you're working out of on the chat. My name is Art Nelson Concordia. He, him, they, them, siya in Tagalog, which is a non-gender specific term, similar to they, them. That is what I go by. I get to co-coordinate the ethnic studies work for our district, along with my colleague Nikhil Lod. We are part of the History Social Studies team, along with Terica Garcia and Amy Ritchell, and our supervisors here. Hi, Susie DeBlois. Welcome everyone. So it looks like everyone's starting to add their name to the chat. If you're just coming on board, again, please make sure to sign in. And at the top of the chat, and I think Terica can link the agenda once again, all of the resources. Thank you, Terica, right there, that we reference in the slide deck, you'll be able to access. So make sure to open that up. All right, let's go ahead and keep things moving. Very important for us to begin our session with a community connector. We are introducing or sharing with you or utilizing this application called Mentimeter that you can use to facilitate connection, interaction, engagement with your students. This is very new to me as of yesterday, and actually this whole facilitating of and participating and leading PD virtually to this degree is new for me. So there will be a lot of stumbling forward. Just wanted to name that. Lots of anxiety, apprehension, and excitement. This is cool to be able to see all of you on my screen. So a couple of questions, Mentimeter. And you can access that by the QR code or the link on your agenda. 2 questions. What is one word to describe how you hope to feel on Monday morning? Secondly, what is one word to describe how you hope your students will feel by the end of next week? And this is all within the context of the purpose of this PD is to help you and to support you in launching the first 2 weeks of school. And Lod, if you'll advance the slide, we can look at actually live results as you all input your your responses to the prompts. So we have excitement, we have some calm. These are aspirational, right? And again, we hope to support you in getting to this point, right? To be ready, to be prepared, energized, centered. And I think the larger bold in this word cloud, like all word clouds, reflect multiple responses. So I hope we'll be able to reduce the Zoom overload feeling. We hope, right, all of us collectively, our team, we hope we'll be able to support you. Couple more minutes. Can we look at the other prompt? Or you can advance it on the bottom left. So if you go back there, Lad.
This one?
Go up to the previous Mentimeter. So click the link live. Sorry, the slide after this. There's actually two. Yeah, so advance to the next one. So click that link.
Oh, there's two here.
And then on the bottom left, there's an arrow that'll get us to the second, right? So as far as where we hope our students, how our students will feel by the end of next week, we hope that they'll be engaged, excited, connected, absolutely. And if in any way we are modeling, we hope to model ways to connect across this virtual landscape. Absolutely, we want them to feel safe, inspired, ready, confident, relieved, and loved. That's a great segue to the next slide. So what we really want to do is frame this PD by one, acknowledging our present condition, historic moment, filled with all kinds of feels, many not too good feels. So let's take this moment, and we want you to type your responses in the chat to this prompt. What are the realities we as educators, caregivers, community members facing right now? Take a moment, reflect, and then respond on the chat, in the chat. Again, what are the realities we as educators, caregivers, community members facing right now? Heavy, immediately seeing the heaviness that we all bear at the moment. You are not alone in feeling this. Economically, politically, culturally, just to state what is being named in our chat. And I do want to call that one out. Like there is a feeling, this one input, and it's gone away, but there's a feeling of having very little room for error, and yet we do our best. We will do this together as far as this task in front of us. If we can advance the slide, we want to share with you this quote as far as the task we are all charged with. A Brené Brown quote from Daring Classrooms. What we are ethically called to do is to create a safe space in our schools and classrooms where all students can walk in, and for the day or hour, take off the crushing weight of their armor, hang it on a rack, and open their heart to truly being seen. And as we set this as a goal for our students, we also set this a goal for ourselves and our role in CNI and humanities, history, social studies, to ultimately take where we are in this reality and to find ways to move toward possibility. So again, important to acknowledge the reality and to chart our course toward the opportunities before us, historic moment. So a couple more questions. What are the possibilities of this moment? What opportunities might we have to actualize these brave spaces for students so that they are truly seen? Question 1. Question 2, what concrete steps might you take, might we collectively take to create brave spaces in the reality of today for our students? So as we're experiencing all of this, all of what you've named, our students are very much a part of the communities that we are from, that we are serving, and are also going through these things. So I believe we are going to go into smaller, no, let's see, sorry.
We're gonna do breakout rooms, right?
We are, okay, I missed that prompt. We're gonna give you an opportunity to connect with each other around those 2 prompts.
Okay, everybody, you should see an invite coming through for breakout rooms.
Thank you, Nikhil. And so we want you to just take some time, reflect on these 2 prompts, share with each other. Again, make space for connection, community building. And we will return in about 10 minutes. I think we're good on time. So again, welcome back. On the chat, please plug in a highlight from your discussion in small group. And then I think I could close this out loud in the next slide. We ultimately want to move you, support you, resource you. You know, one, acknowledging and beginning with the realities that we all face, that you face, and move us to possibility. Looks like there's a great deal of powerful discussion being had. So some quieter students had more opportunities to have their voice be heard. We discussed the power of modeling vulnerability. Shout out Fernando Bautista, who's a master in this. Had the opportunity to teach relevant curriculum. More time and control for students to be able to express themselves. All of these things, these positive inputs, to the degree that we need to, want to incorporate within our professional development and support of you all. Again, we are here with you this year in this journey. We'll be presenting, we have Catherine Marcouillet from Denman and Carla Becerra. Carla, where are you at now?
I'm at Presidio.
Presidio, at Presidio, presenting shortly. We do have a video that we'd like you to watch before. And again, my name is Art Nelson Concordia. Our team and our contact information is available on the agenda. Reach out. Thank you. Good luck.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Ritchell, she, her, hers, and I am the high school history, social studies, ethnic studies TSA. And so like Art said, we will be taken through and introduced to the intro units from both Carla and Kate. And so before that, we're going to do a little framing that maybe some of you saw if you were in the ELA launching lessons as well. But it's just a reminder of where, again, we are coming from and where our teachers are coming from in creating these units.
A little bit of context for the launching lessons.
Oh, sorry.
So back in the spring, many of you participated in a survey that was the QTEA staff survey that was administered by SFUSD. And one of the questions on that survey was as follows: which of the following supports would you consider most useful for facilitating implementation of distance learning in the future? These are the top 3 responses. Based on this piece of data, our team and every other content team in CNI, Curriculum and Instruction, was asked to consider what curricular supports, lesson plans or unit plans, could we provide centrally to support teachers with items 1, 2, and 3. And on top of this, we held a number of town halls with staff, with families, and one of the biggest, 3 of the biggest concerns that folks named were these 3 pieces. Families and staff wanted wraparound services. They noted that people need connection and that distance learning required more support, more coherence, and more access. We also heard a number of considerations for how it is that we needed to strengthen our distance learning. And this came from our town halls, but also from our work sessions that were convened in order to produce the Get Back to School plan. And as you can see, there are a number of considerations here related to relationships, related to connection, related to attending to the health and wellness of our students and ourselves, and for making sure that the instruction we offer is differentiated and also attending to different types of learners. Most importantly, we heard from students over the summer, and unilaterally, what we heard from them was students wanted more interaction. They wanted more connection. They wanted more opportunities to talk to each other and to talk to teachers. And they wanted more instruction. They wanted more structure. And they wanted to make sure that every teacher and every class felt prepared to lead distance learning. And so what we did was we pulled together a team of classroom teachers from across the middle school division, as well as central office staff in the Division of Curriculum and Instruction, but also in the divisions of LEAD, in the divisions of RPA, our assessments branch, of Students, Family, Community, and Support Division, Special Ed. I think that gets it. I think that gets all the divisions. We pulled everybody together and pulled together a plan to support teachers and students with a first 30 days approach. And so what the central office is going to be able to offer is 6 weeks or so of curricular support, starting with these first 2 weeks of sample launching lessons. That's what we're here to talk about today. On August 24th, we're also going to be sharing a 4-week Unit 1, also written by classroom teachers, that is subject specific, and that will be a nice starting point for you as you start to think about when you want to move into your specific content, what that might look like. Finally, we're also going to offer a revised scope and sequence we're calling the major work of the grade. We know distance learning requires us to go deeper as opposed to broader, and it requires us to do less and to really focus on what's essential. And so we're going to be revising our scope and sequence in English language arts and sharing that with you so that you can design instruction that's really catering to the most essential student learning outcomes and needs for your students. Okay. So these launch lessons were put together by a group of classroom teachers and staff across the content areas with support from central office divisions. The goal here was that we would have a set of lessons we could offer to a school site that would be across discipline without being redundant. We wanted to take the idea of being a student, a random 6th grader or a random 7th grader, and think about their first 2 weeks of school. And we asked our curriculum writers, our classroom teachers, and our central office staff to think about that student. What do we want them to know and be able to do at the end of the first 2 weeks of school? How do we want them to feel? And so together they brainstormed and named all of these shared outcomes, and then they split them up amongst the content areas. And so they tried to coordinate that so it wouldn't be redundant, so there wouldn't be major overlap. All of that was done with the intention that these lessons be used as samples, not as pick up and go and implement. These are samples that we believe need to be adapted, and that the best way to do that is to work with your site, work with your grade level, make the lessons come alive for the students who sit before you. In addition, we made sure that we were utilizing an anti-racist mindset while we were building the lessons, and also built into the very lesson structure that for the daily lessons and the weekly lessons, making sure that educators are reminded about the importance of lifting up the brilliance of every student. Opportunities to recognize our own biases, to take an equity pause at the end of a lesson and ask ourselves, who was able to access that lesson, who wasn't? And to challenge and just dismantle these structures that are so part and parcel of the system of public education that we are all a part of. With that, the team of teachers came up with this shared guiding question that across the disciplines, across the grades, each launching lesson set would address. And that is, how can we create a brave and engaging space where we can heal, collaborate, and learn? Some nuts and bolts here. Because we started planning these lessons weeks ago, before we had an MOU and before school sites voted on and agreed to their school schedules, which we understand are still being voted on and agreed to as we speak, we had to make a decision for planning purposes only. And so with consultation with the middle school lead, we decided we would build lessons for a schedule that had 4 classes meeting twice a week in 75-minute sessions. The idea that no block would be 100% synchronous, and that the work assigned for a subject area would not go over that 75-minute time period. In other words, there's no homework. Students might not complete all of the assignments within the 75-minute scheduled time. They can do it at their convenience, but we didn't want to add anything extra to that 75 minutes. One exception for the lessons that we built is physical education. And the physical education team in curriculum and instruction, which is fabulous, created daily 35-minute asynchronous lessons with synchronous options. I'm planning to do them all starting next Monday and would really encourage you guys to check them out too. They're very cool. We also worked with our classroom teachers and our curriculum writers to break down these 75-minute sessions, which kind of feel overwhelming, and especially in this new world of distance learning, it's hard to figure out how we want to approach this. So what we asked folks to do was to plan for a 40-minute synchronous or live session, prioritizing connection, discussion, and interaction. Then we asked them to use the remaining 35 minutes of that allotted time period even though students don't necessarily do the work during that moment, for asynchronous or independent work. And we asked our teachers and our writers to make sure that even though folks were doing asynchronous work, that it wasn't devoid of interaction. Giving a little bit of context.
All right. Okay. So as I'm trying to pull this video back down, I'm realizing that I don't need to do a whole lot of introduction. But I do need to, here, let's see. Oh. Oops. All right. So my presentation actually got kicked off, technical difficulties. Can I actually have somebody else on my team pull that up while we have Carla and Kate introduce themselves?
Yeah, Amy, you want
Thank you.
the screen, the slides shared?
Yes, thank you. It should be like slide 13 maybe. Okay, cool.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Marquier, and I teach at James Denman Middle School. This year, I will be teaching 7th and 8th grade social studies, and I'm one of the authors of the Launching Unit lessons.
Hi everyone, my name is Carla Becerra and I'm at Presidio Middle School this year teaching 7th grade social studies. And I worked with Kate on these launching lessons.
So today we wanted to be able to share with you an overview, and I know there will be time later to ask questions, and I believe there's some small group time, but we wanted to share the some of the thinking behind our writing and show you a sample of what we would ideally want our students to be working to or towards if we were implementing these lessons. So if whoever is sharing at this point could click on the overview link.
Oops, sorry.
Thank you. I think, yeah, there we go. It'll move down to history, social studies. So one of the, a lot of the goals that we had set for ourselves and that were discussed amongst our team in general across disciplines were what we really wanted our students to come away with. And especially for social studies, in addition to building the community, we wanted to really think about how students could share their stories and have their stories be meaningful to the creation of our community, right? We know that teaching history, social studies is a lot about telling stories and focusing on the perspectives and the authors and the ideas that are in those stories is what really makes our discipline come alive. So we thought that a way that we could do that is by incorporating student stories and perspectives into the building of the community in the first few weeks. Carla, do you want to add anything?
We also wanted to, like Kate said, incorporate the personal histories as a way. It also touches on the aspect of anti-racist teaching by incorporating oral history and also helps the students build better community.
And so if, I'm not sure whose screen we're on at the moment, but if we could scroll down a little bit. Thanks, Laud. For week 1, actually, Carla, do you want to do a brief overview since you wrote lesson 1 and 2?
So for week 1, we have 2 lessons, and the first lesson is kind of an intro on getting to know your students and your students getting to know you. Also the start of developing a virtual community. So we have an icebreaker, and teachers get to introduce their snapshot autobiography, which is a project that they're going to be working on throughout these 4 lessons. So at the end of the 4 lessons, they should have a final product of the snapshot autobiography, which is taken from the SHEG curriculum. Except this time we decided to focus, normally the project is focusing on 3 life events, and we wanted to focus on 3 events during quarantine. So that way we can begin this like process of healing together, because we've all like experienced this, we've all had this experience. Then for the asynchronous part, they have an entry survey, and that's again a better way for them to get to know each other. And during the asynchronous part, they get time to work on their slides, and during that time, teachers also get a chance to provide feedback and be open for office hours. Also during the synchronous part in the beginning, they go into a quick write in which they write just their, kind of vent their feelings and their experiences or what they went through during quarantine. And then they will use that quick write to come up with 3 events. And then for the second lesson, we wanted to incorporate a little bit of content into it. So we are talking about corroboration, because for their 4th story, they're going to interview someone who went through that same event with them and kind of get their perspective. You could also go further as to go over bias and perspective and sourcing. But from the feedback that we got, a lot of people thought that we were rushing into content too quick. So I toned it down by just focusing on 1 vocab word, but you can do more. And for the second lesson, we're doing the lunchroom fight scenario from also taken from SHEG, in which they read a scenario of a lunchroom fight, look at all the different stories and the different perspectives, and try to figure out who was at fault. And they will be doing that during the synchronous part, and then the asynchronous part kind of reflecting on that and coming up with examples for corroboration. And then the third and fourth lesson, Kate?
Yeah, so after students have narrowed down some of their events and have looked at the skill of corroboration, they're then going to move into the lesson where they would be interviewing a family member, a friend, someone else who also experienced one of the events that they had chosen from their experiences since March. And they would be conducting a really small oral history style interview with taking some notes and some on what that person says, and then creating a 5th slide for their project where they basically present another side of one of the stories of the events they had told previously. And so this gets into the skills around sourcing and oral history and looking at a different perspective. And then in the 4th lesson, they would be able to present to a partner. And I know that there's going to be some guidance offered later in our presentation this morning around a way to set up breakout rooms safely and making sure that, we're not having too many students or creating an unsafe space in breakout rooms. So within our lessons, we do offer a listening guide and present some skills that the students should be working on, even in a digital scenario. And then they would end with a reflection on how sharing stories and building new knowledge of classmates will inform their community and the norms that they wish to uphold going forward for distance learning and for the rest of the year. And that will transition nicely into the next week's Unit 1 lessons. So if we can go back to the slide presentation on the launch deck, there we go. The culminating project sample with the little link there is kind of what we're intending. So actually, this is my sample, but we do have the format for each of these slides. So I guess, yeah, if we want to start with number 1 up there, these are just what would be on every slide. And it gives a brief kind of introduction. So if you were to copy this slide deck for your students, this is what we had intended. If you want other prompts, if you want to change it and make it into something that's more specific to a connection you want to make with students or something else, please feel free to. But if you really needed to, you could make a copy and use our directions. And then if you switch the slide, we give a kind of format. I know when I've done presentations with students before, they really appreciate being able to see what, even where things are supposed to go on slides. And we also wrote sentence frames for any of the writing, because we know that this, even though it is a literacy class, is not necessarily their English class, and we can always use extra scaffolds, especially with our students who haven't done much writing in months and months, or in general need extra language help. And if we go one more slide forward, we've got so we've seen the formats for slide 1, which is the title, slide 2, 3, and 4, which present an event. This one would be the memory of someone else. And then the final format slide is about a little bit about the author page. Think of like the back of a book cover, like just the about the author section on that book sleeve. And then I attached my own sample because I thought it was only fair that if the kids are going to do it, we would, as an instructor, we would too. So these were just my own thoughts and ramblings. So at the beginning of quarantine, I was just, I don't know, figuring it out like the rest of us. So there's a picture of some brownies I made because I began stress baking, because that's what the beginning of quarantine was for me. The next, oh yeah, I can share the recipe with you, Art Nelson. Then towards the end of the year, I was, really, really torn up over not being able to give my beloved advisory students a graduation after having been with them for 3 years. And then event number 3 was being able to visit my parents in Los Angeles for a few weeks in July. And that was a good kind of upswing of my mood and mental health. And then for event number 4, or not event number 4, my corroboration, or my oral history slide was, I called and interviewed my mom and talked with her and asked her what it was like for her to have me home for a few weeks. And it was actually really, really sweet, but it's kind of a tangent. And then the last slide would be a little about the author slide about me. And that was a picture taken from our 8th grade camping trip, and just tells a little bit more about me. And ideally, this would be something you would share with your own students your first day, to show them kind of where you would be hoping they would get to by the end of the first 2 weeks. And then you could give them a little bit of knowledge about yourself to really start off that and encourage some vulnerability. And of course, you would want this to be yourself. 99% of all students in the district don't know me, but of course they want to know you. That's the most important part. So if we go back to the launching deck one more time, please, and thank you.
Is that
That one, yeah. And then really our author's note is that for any of the activities, the icebreakers, the general scope of the project, we're only 2 teachers and you all come with amazing amounts of expertise. So if there's anything that you're like, I don't know if this really fits, replace it. Please feel free to edit, manipulate, change, improve upon everything that we have put forth, because we know that you all are your own experts. And this was just a humble offering of both of us to try and give folks something to work with and start to help you build communities in your own classrooms. Carla, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I want to second what Kate said. I also want to thank Susie for giving us the opportunity to do this.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it from both of us. And if you have any questions, I know there will be some breakout time and maybe we'll be able to check in with various groups, but you can always message us and email us. I mean, with our names on the final product, you can definitely find our emails if you have any questions, or let us know if there's anything in the chat that you are wanting immediately that we can help you with or help you find. Then yeah, so that's that.
All right. Thank you both so much. Again, we working in CNI, at least from my perspective, I'm just so grateful for the teachers who have worked with us to develop this curriculum, because you know, none of us went to teaching school to do any of this. And no matter how long you've been teaching, we're all new at how to work within these conditions, and especially at the beginning of the year. Like, I like to start building community with students is so important, right? And figuring out how it is that how we bring ourselves and our true selves in the beginning of the year. This is, again, a really beautiful attempt to be able to do that with students. And so I thank you both to root, again, the narratives of your students and to get to know them. And so like Kate said right before she left, again, this is their offerings as teachers, and you are encouraged to, of course, make this your own and to do what you will with it. So now is the time that we're going to give you to actually look a little bit more deeply into the material. So it's going to be a time to chew onto the stuff that we gave you. All right. It says 10 minutes, but we want to respect your time because they went through kind of a thorough overview. If you could actually take like about 8 minutes to go through, read over read over the overview, and then look into the daily lessons. And then we'll call you back quickly, and then we're going to put you into breakout groups to actually discuss some questions before we break. If you have any clarifying questions for either Carla or Kate, please go ahead and ask those in the chat. So at the moment, you can go ahead and turn off your camera if you prefer, so that you're not like me and you're like reading stuff like with a weird face. And we'll call you back at 11:30. And so what you're going to do is you're going to consider 3 different questions, and we'll go ahead and put those in the chat while you're in breakout groups. The first question is, first of all, what activities are you thinking of doing to establish a brave, engaging space where students can heal, collaborate, and learn? So maybe you had already been thinking about this. And so what were you thinking about doing? Maybe some new ideas were brought up when looking at this lesson, but maybe you had some other ideas as well. And then how might narrative and personal stories be a part of your launching lessons during this time in history? There's unimaginable things that we, especially as history, social studies teachers, like could not anticipate in going into a new year. How are you going to bring that into your classroom? What other ideas do you have for launching this year? Okay, and so in your breakout rooms, we're going to ask you to address those 3 questions. And again, once we put you into breakout rooms, we'll put those into the smaller chat. Okay? Are there any clarifying questions or anything? Nikhil, could you put folks? Okay, thank you.
You should be seeing a.
Okay, so again, thank you for taking the work seriously and being open to talk about some of the things that you're planning on doing. Some of the people in the chat did, it's a new year. Like even though there's anxiety, like there's excitement as well. And one of the things that I found at the end of last year about this situation that we find ourselves in that was really inspiring to me was the fact that because we don't have geographical constraints, we're able to actually meet more people from around the district. I was at Mission for 14 years, and I didn't often get to other high schools, and so I was in some meetings last year that gave me opportunities to connect with other history, social studies teachers in other schools that it would have been difficult for me to do so with normal constraints. And so I hope that you've been able to, one, get some helpful ideas around curriculum and how to start off next week, but also be able to meet some new people that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise been able to meet. So be able to try and keep in touch, and we will be here to help also facilitate some more meetings as well. So thank you again for talking with one another. So the next is going to be, what is next?
Okay, that's me. Hey everybody, my name is Terica. I'm the TSA for K-8 History Social Science. So if you're on the slides, you can click that announcements, or if you're on the agenda, same thing, same link. But basically, I'm just gonna go over the information real fast. Thank you, Kate and Carla, for making those great launching units. We are also going to be making samples of Unit 1s that are history, social science focused, but for 6, 7, 8. So it's not necessarily like content of medieval or US history. And those will be shared with everybody on August 24th. And there will be PD provided if you want to join to learn more about it and to discuss with everyone via Zoom. Another thing that's coming out is, you mentioned it a little bit before in the video, but the major works of the grade, we know that teaching is no longer the same. The time constraints are very different now. We're at 75, I would say less, at a pace than when we were in person. And that will be shared with everyone via the Google Classroom. So make sure you're on that History Social Science Google Classroom on September 1st. The next thing is, we all know that even though we're history, social science, like everybody teaches literacy, it's always super important to teach into those skills. If you're looking for nonfiction books or even fiction books, Hoopla has a bunch of thousands of books, and now there's no constraint on how many people can check out one book. So you don't have to like wait to borrow something, but you can borrow up to 30 titles. So all your students and you can be reading the same text. And if you don't have a SF Public Library card, make sure to get one. The link's right there. And then there will be another, they had a wide reading PD last year, but they'll be offering another one on August 31st. So go ahead and go to the SF PD page calendar, and then you can sign up for that. Next, if you need another online reading resource, there's Newsela. They already have asynchronous tutorials if you need it. If you're very new to Newsela, check out the 101. If you're a little bit more seasoned, go ahead and check out the 201. But you need to have a SFUSD Clever account, so make sure you set that up. And just so that you have everything on one platform in general. And if you're more like me, asynchronous is fine, but I do like when I have someone who's live so I can talk through things sometimes. Tomorrow, there will be a sequence of PDs. So the first one is just learning about it 101, and how to do it in an inquiry-based setting. The Discovering Newsela, that one's more of how do we make it interactive with students? How do we use it as like a point of interest for them? And then they'll have office hours afterwards. And then this is a big question for everyone of, can teachers record synchronous sessions so that you can give it to a student who hasn't been in your class or who wasn't able to attend the live session? And the answer is yes, but with some caveats of you must have consent from their guardians, obviously, if you're recording them. And then if you haven't gotten those permission slips back from parents, then you could try to just record your own self and like screencastify it, as long as you don't have that maybe Q&A session with the students' faces on it.
If I could jump in, I was thinking of doing the same thing. And when I open Zoom, I have two different pages. One is whoever is speaking and one is like all of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can pin the one of just yourself, and then you won't have the chat and you won't have the students on there.
Yeah, that's
so I'm
perfect.
thinking maybe I could record that session and then post it.
Yeah, right now because I'm showing my screen, like y'all can't see, I can see some people's faces in a box, but y'all can't see that, right? Okay, so yeah, I guess if you just pin your own face and you can see your screen only, and then you make sure to click that top left, there's like one, so you can only see one speaker, that would work also as an option. Thank you. Whoever shared that, I can't see who shared that.
Quick question on Newsela. Does every school have to get their own? Because I don't think we're signed up for it this year. Or is the district
No,
paid for it
everyone
already?
in the district should have one now.
District paid for it for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
So everyone should have a teacher account. Any other questions?
There was a question on the unit 1 that's going to be created. That's not going to be subject specific, correct?
Correct. No, it's subject specific, but it's not grade level specific. So it's for history. I made it for history, social science teachers in mind, but it's not going to have like ancient civ or medieval. And in the same vein, it's also aligned with like, how are we connecting with our students? How are we thinking of that with the context that we're all in right now?
Right. And I think finally, Bernie has.
Oh, I just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No. Well. About the recording. Yeah, that's kind of funny. Well, it's kind of a little bit intricate because the contract says that we're not supposed to be recording things, but I understand if you have a waiver or something, but it's going to be hard to get like all the kids on board with the waiver. Some kids won't. What if some kids don't want to be recorded?
Yeah. So definitely mess around with like your Zoom, and we'll try to figure it out together. And as we get more informed about it, maybe we can just share tips, much like whoever shouted out that other pro tip of maybe you can just pin your own face so that they can only see you talking while you're sharing your screen, so it's not having everyone else. The next thing that a lot of folks are asking about are like, and Michael, you put it in the chat, of what about breakout rooms? We can't be in all breakout rooms at once, obviously, we know that. So first things first of just like building any community, make sure you have your own ground rules set for your classroom, about privacy and like really dig into the importance of privacy and how we all want to feel safe in this new tech learning space. Make sure they know what appropriate behaviors are and like how they look like, practice them, run through them, give them space to ask those questions, because not all of our cultures have like the same idea when it comes to what behavior looks like, and just build those norms in. And then once they're in their breakout rooms, just like any other class, like stuff sometimes happens when your back is turned, but we're going to try to circulate and move around the breakout rooms as much as possible, so that we have a good understanding of what's happening in each group. and who the people are in each group and what they need. And then also make sure to tell students beforehand, like what's the system if you're in a different breakout group and they have a question, like how are they going to funnel that to you eventually? And that can just be like they write it down, share it with you at the very end, or maybe there's some kind of other online platform where they can put in questions and you can respond while you're in other breakout rooms. So again, we're going to have to troubleshoot it as best we can. And then last but not least, if you're ever in a breakout group, don't end it there. Like bring the students back into a common space so that you can have that finality of the classroom and you can actually share your reflections at the very end. Any questions about that? Cool.
I don't know if it's about that, but Bernie has his hand raised.
Oh, I can't see any of those. Sorry, I'm not a host.
Oh, yeah, no, I just asked my question. So I'm good for now.
Thank you, Bernie. And then I'm going to skip this so that you guys have time to actually do the feedback. So if you click the link either in the agenda or in the slideshow, that is feedback and support. We'd love to hear back from y'all of how today felt and how it went, but more importantly, what do you feel like you need and your site needs in order to feel confident and well supported in this school year. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who presented. And thank you, all the teachers. Hope you have a fabulous rest of your Thursday. Enjoy the SF sun that we're getting.
Are there seminars in the afternoon that we can go to?
Yes, I can put the PD.
Is that one for Google Classroom in the afternoon, or was that in the morning?
The one for Newsella?
No, well, yeah, that would be good too, but the one for Google Classroom.
Hey, Bernie, I think there's a Google Classroom one tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Oh, it's tomorrow morning. Okay.
If someone has the PD calendar, if they can put it in the chat. If not, I can. Oh, I have it. Here it is.
Hey, Terga, the feedback form says ELA on it. Is that okay?
Oh, no.
Maybe I should make a copy. If I can.
Good old tech. What
asks
about the one in the
It
slideshow?
asks you what subject area you're in.
Oh, it does? Okay. All right. So everybody, please just use that feedback.
No, here's the feedback for history, social science. And I'll change that in the agenda. Apologies.
Oh, good.
Thanks for checking on that, Nikhil.
Okay.
I don't know who made it, but for anyone's future reference, it's James Denman and not John Denman, but he kind of sucks anyway, so no worries.
I'll tell Susie that it says John Denman in all of them.
Yeah.
Well, we're changing all the names of the schools anyway.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
Thanks everyone. If you can fill out the feedback in here if you have any questions, but you can also just log off if you want to.
Yes.